And we gave you Prince Harry. No, you keep him. You keep him.
Nigel Farage has had enough of being cautious. Drunk on the MAGA spirit, all the talk of entering number 10 as an insurgent prime minister has been thrown out the window, replaced by a buccaneering spirit meant to emulate JD Vance and Elon Musk. And to be honest, I'm delighted. As you know, Nigel's caution has annoyed me a little bit, tacking to the left on certain issues like mass deportations and demography, and even the situation in Ukraine has been frustrating, even if the poll results, and I concede this, show it has been highly successful. But given the hell the UK now finds itself under Slippery Starmer and his socialist mob, I'm here for Farage's honesty. At CPAC, he admitted the UK is in a mess.
My country, you can't say anything or you might get put in prison. We're getting poorer. Everybody's miserable. We're governed by a left-wing, awful government.
And we have had enough.
That, like you, British taxpayers have had enough of sending £100,000 to Bangladesh to study shrimp behaviour. But we've had enough of free speech being cracked down upon. We've had enough of two-tier policing, two-tier justice, different groups of people being treated differently by the law. We've had enough of being told, you can't say that. The hell with it. Within the limits of what free speech gives us, we should be allowed to say whatever the hell we want. And we will.
Oh, yes, we will. Come on, arrest us if you want to. But Nigel does know, especially in America, that Elon Musk turning on him viciously over the Tommy Robinson situation and seemingly deciding to back Rupert Lowe to replace him has been hugely damaging. The Washington, D.C. conference was a chance for him to try and make good.
Well, I think he's a hero. Because if you remember 2020, in November, you couldn't say anything about the conduct of the election in this country. You then couldn't say anything about vaccines or about lockdowns without social media closing you down. And then along came the hero of free speech, Elon Musk.
Unlike virtually all other British politicians, Farage also provided a full-throttled endorsement of JD Vance's speech of a lifetime at the Munich Security Conference, where he lambasted Europe for its failings on home turf.
That rather upset them. But JD was right to have allowed millions of undocumented young males to come into Europe, many from war zones in which they took an active part, to allow those people who come in, and in many cases come from cultures and countries where women are not even treated as second-class citizens, to have seen the massive increases in crime, gang crime, dramatic increases in sexual crime against women, and yet nobody in the European establishment is prepared to put their hands up to recognise the depth of the problem and to say sorry to their people. And JD called them out in this speech, and he was right. He was right.
And there was even time for some fun. And the fun was had at Prince Harry's expense, which I'm always here for.
And we very often follow you. American trends we tend to follow. You occasionally follow some of our trends. I mean, you gave us woke. And we gave you Prince Harry. No, you keep him. You keep him.
But in. Then was the important moment, the significant moment, the real change in strategy, the declaration. For the first time, Nigel went on the record to say Reform UK will win the next general election, meaning he will become Prime Minister to save our country. Watch.
I am now leading, and in historical terms, this is incredible. I am now leading Reform UK, and we are now topping every opinion poll in Britain. And we are going to win the next general election and save our country. We're going to do it.
And look, the polls certainly back up his new sense of optimism. As Zia Youssef, the party's chairman, reported today, Reform, the most popular party again, with a different pollster, Techni UK, 1% ahead of Labour in this poll, 4 ahead of the Conservatives. And the fact that there's now a clean sweep for Reform in every major poll means the opposition has pressed the panic button. So we had this from the attack dog, one Ed Davey, Lib Dem leader. There's a rumour that Nigel Farage is keeping his head down because he's off to a Trump cheerleading conference over the weekend. I'm afraid I'm being proved right. Farage is far more interested in Trump's success than British security. He is a bootlicker and plastic patriot. And even more deranged, that woman Zara Sultana, she's still at it. Another poster. And she wrote on X, "We stand for solutions, not scapegoats. We're against billionaires bankrolling division, against politicians propping up a system rigged against us, and for a future rooted in working class unity, solidarity, and justice. Join the fight back." But look, the reality is that the fight back is happening on the right. And Nigel's MAGA-inspired rhetoric is much better than the new Tory light approach he's taken lately. So it makes me excited about what might be to come. Now, let me bring in today's outsider. Delighted to be joined for the show by Henry Bolton. He, of course, succeeded Nigel Farage as the leader of UKIP, now the president of the Primrose League, the patriotic, culturally conservative movement which furthers the interest of the nation and its prosperity and security since the 1800s. He is also an ex-diplomat, soldier, and police officer. Henry Bolton, so great to have you back on Outspoken. What did you make of this change in tone from Nigel Farage at CPAC overnight?
Well, as you quite rightly said just now, there's a bit more sort of forward-leaning rhetoric coming from Nigel than we've seen for a few weeks, if not a couple of months. But on the other side of it, we've got to remember that he is at CPAC. CPAC is a particular sort of environment,
safe territory.
Yeah, indeed. And it was safe territory, very much so for Nigel. But also, they're a very American Republican type of sort of political body. And I think, they're very, very, as you say, friendly environment, very receptive to his message, very receptive to that sort of rhetoric, and he's enjoying it. And Nigel does enjoy that sort of thing. So it doesn't surprise me at all to hear this coming from Nigel in that setting.
Do you believe it, though, Henry? Do you believe it? Do you think Farage can become Prime Minister and Reform UK can win the next election?
Can, yes. Are they on track to? I'm a little bit of a... I don't think they are on track at the moment. Yes, the polling is high, but on the polling, as former leader of UKIP and with a lot of contacts within that sort of ex-UKIP sort of quietly patriotic sort of centre-right group of people who are deeply disappointed with the Conservative Party, deeply disappointed with the direction that the country's going in, deeply disappointed with the lack of delivery for Brexit. Those people, a lot of them have subscribed as supporters to the Reform Party, but are far from having decided to vote for them. And indeed, we've got, another 4 years or more before the next general election. And the other thing to look at, whilst the polling is high, is not just where Reform are, but the the appalling place that the Conservative Party and the Labour Party are. And look at the by-election results, local election by-election results since the last general election, because whereas UKIP traditionally did very well in local by-election results, Reform is not doing so well. I think there's been about 163 by-elections since the general election, of which Reform has won 11, and the Conservative Party has won 24, or gained 24. So in that respect, the voting in those by-elections, albeit local government, is not necessarily reflecting what we're seeing in the polling. And I think the nature of the way that Reform has recruited its members is a little skews the thing somewhat. And finally, on all of that, I think that Reform is offering a great deal of hope. As I said, there's a huge disappointment in the Conservative Party, understandably so. The Conservative Party absolutely does not deserve anybody's vote. Through negligence and incompetence, it's failed to deliver, and failed to deliver again. The Labour Party, of course, is actively undermining the nation. So where is there to go? And Nigel, with his rhetoric, his showmanship and so on, is the obvious place to look to for hope. But he and the party so far, whilst being artful in the extreme at telling us what we already know, as Nigel did in those clips that you showed, we know that everything's in an appalling state, but what are the solutions? Now, in the past, I've had conversations with Nigel, heated conversations, when I've tried to advocate that the detail matters, only to be told that I'm not interested in detail, nobody's interested in the detail. But as a sort of former military planner, I know very well that if you get the detail wrong, it's not just intention, it's about getting the detail right, how you're going to do things, whether things, you've got all the resources in the right place at the right time to do the right thing. So all of these caveats, I would say, if Reform does want to gain power in the next general election, these things have to be addressed. It's far from a done deal yet.
But first, attention all the proud, the bold, and the beautifully bald. It's time to elevate your grooming game with the Manscaped Dome Shaver Plus. Designed for precision, comfort, and a flawless finish, this shaver is the ultimate tool for keeping your dome as smooth as your pickup lines. Whether you're maintaining a sleek style or embracing the shine with confidence, the Dome Shaver Plus has you covered. So head on over to manscaped.com, join the over 11 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped. I'm one of them. Use the code Outspoken. You'll get 20% off your entire order and free shipping anywhere in the world. The Dome Shaver Plus, though, let me tell you about it. It adapts to your head's contours for a smooth shave without the mess and hassle of traditional shaving. 4 stainless steel, skin-safe rotary blades reduce nicks and cuts to deliver a perfectly bald look without uneven hair patches. With Flex Adjust technology, every blade stays perfectly close to your scalp for a precise finish. The powerful 8,000 RPM motor delivers effortless shaving performances with less strokes and irritation. The long-lasting rechargeable battery has up to 60 minutes of runtime. When a charge is needed, you can save time with the 10-minute quick change option. Because the Dome Shaver Plus is waterproof, you can also enjoy wet or dry operation, and it's ergonomically designed to fit comfortably into your hand and effortlessly navigate every curve of your scalp. With a magnetic blade pad and hair chamber, cleanup is a breeze too, making sure your Dome Shaver Plus stays fresh and ready to deliver a smooth shave every time you need it. And by the way, if you've got a boyfriend or a husband or a son who likes the smooth bald look, this is the perfect guest for them. So go to manscaped.com, use the code Outspoken for free shipping and a whopping 20% discount on your entire order. Get the Dome Shaver Plus today and experience a shave that is as smooth as you deserve. But now, back to the show. And Henry, what about you personally? Because you haven't thrown your weight behind Reform UK. Is there a reason for that?
Yeah, there is a reason. For when, yeah, I'll give you the history of it, Dan. I don't think I've ever given it to anybody else. Just sort of briefly, I obviously lost the leadership of UKIP, and I spoke to Nigel on a couple of occasions and said, look, you really need to re-engage, because now there is nobody. UKIP's going to go by the by, fade into insignificance incredibly rapidly. You need to re-engage, because the Remain element, the Remain campaigners are regrouping, reorganising, and if the vacuum that's been left after Brexit, after the referendum, is not filled, then with a vision, with direction, with proposals as to what we should do, what our plan is, then if that void is not filled, then those Remain people, the rejoin people, are going to start to dominate the debate. And Nigel did not want to get in. That's where we had that concept, that conversation, heated conversation about detail. But in the end, he did re-engage. But again, there's no detail. I repeatedly sort of tried to push that. He and I spoke about forming a new party, which I did, which was the Our Nation Party. That was in full collaboration with Nigel. We were speaking 2-3 times a week about it. Unbeknownst to me, he was setting up the Brexit Party in parallel, and suddenly he announced that he was doing that, and that was a done deal. I wasn't terribly impressed, but nonetheless, I threw my weight behind Nigel, offered to help. He said, don't want your help, don't want it to look like UKIP too. I've subsequently had conversations with Richard Tice and with Nigel, where I've been asked for my input on how to manage borders, how to manage the boats coming across the channel. Those have all been incredibly frustrating, if I'm honest, Dan, because I have proposed solutions. I've told them why their 4-point plan cannot work. I want it to work. We need to stop the boats, and there are ways of doing it. But I've highlighted the reasons why that 4-point plan cannot work and what could work, only to be told, Henry, that's not what we want to hear. That's not the answer we want to apply. And so I see a party, if I'm honest, that is all about rhetoric and not about detail. And they don't care about the detail. If it's got the attractive headline that is going to attract votes and support, then they're happy with it. I'm not sure that whatever Nigel says, I mean, I think there's going to have to be a change within the party, because if they realistically do come to the point where whatever they say, they might be thinking something different at the present time. But if it's really a serious prospect that they're going to be forming the next government, then they are going to have to address these things, because otherwise they will fail. They will disappoint as much, if not more, than the Conservatives did. But at the moment, what they're interested in is building up that momentum. You keep hearing it from it, momentum. Now, I've offered to be part of that. I've offered to do the backroom detail stuff, the policy, the sort of development of all of the things that Nigel wants to deliver X, Y, and Z. Well, let's work out precisely how to do that, what it's going to cost, what it's going to take, how to do it, what legislation needs changing, all of these sort of things, all the diplomatic sort of issues. We can work all that out, but he doesn't want to, and nor does Richard Tice. So there's not a place for me in that party, and I've been told quite clearly, we don't want you because it's going to look too much like UKIP too, which I think is rubbish. But I think it's more that I'm quite outspoken. And so what I have done, actually, Dan, is I've gone to the Social Democrat Party, who I've had always a great deal of respect for, because they're very thoughtful people. To them, the detail matters. To them, honesty and transparency matters. And so I hope to be able to help them to develop policy. Now, I don't really care if Reform picks that up and runs with it, so long as somebody does things properly. Now, on that, another frustration is where Reform keeps on picking up on things that other people have developed. So, for example, it's been a long-standing sort of little phrase of the Social Democrat Party, family, community, nation. Well, Nigel Farage said a week ago or so, look, for me, I came back into politics because I thought about it and I realised that it's about family, community and country. And so many of the Reform headline policies are ones that the SDP has been running with for a lot longer. So if that influences the future of British politics and governance, I'm happy. But it's a little frustrating that Reform keeps saying, we are the only party that, we are the only party that, when that is patently not true. And they know it. And they know it because actually at certain levels there have been conversations between the two parties. So all of these things, Dan, disappoint me. And even now, if you look at I think today's papers are running, and yesterday it was announced that the Reform Party is now not owned by Nigel and Richard. That's true. However, before that change went through, sort of legally in Companies House and so on, the constitution was changed. And having been a party leader who has been removed by primarily the national executive of his party, I understand the value of constitutions in this respect, party constitutions. And to all practical purposes, the Reform Constitution makes Nigel's position unassailable. Now, I'm not suggesting for a moment that the members of Reform want to remove Nigel. I think that's far from the case. I wonder what would happen to Reform if Nigel wasn't there. But the point is that, again, this is what the Russians would call maskurovka, which is sort of it's misleading. It's a deception plan, because whilst you change the legal setup, what you've done before doing that is ensure that the position of the leader is still unassailable democratically. So through another mechanism, it's disappointing. If a political party can't respect democratic processes within its own structures and organisation, how's it going to respond if it becomes the government to a broader... these are questions, Dan, and I don't mean to be critical, except in a constructive manner. If Reform gets into government, I want to know that these things have been addressed, because I think they can have. Go back to your original question, they could form the next government. But these things do need to be addressed, particularly for the good of the nation, if they do gain power. And I'm a great fan. You're showing photos of me with Nigel there. I mean, I am a great supporter and I have huge respect for Nigel. But we all sometimes need a broader team. We need to listen to other people. We need to question ourselves, our own motives, and whether or not we're getting carried away with certain aspects of the job that we enjoy, rather than focusing on the delivery for other people. Because at the end of the day, politics is about delivering for other people, not about making yourself feel good.
Indeed. Fascinating insight there into the history. Personally, I would say, come on, there's so much that Henry Bolton has to offer to Reform UK. Although I do get the sense sometimes Reform UK aren't that into critical friends. And obviously, if you're not a sycophant, that can be a problem. But as you've seen today, very positive from me about Nigel's speech. Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please click on my face just to the bottom left to subscribe to this brand new independent news source and turn on the notification bell so you'll be alerted to our brand new live shows, uncancelled interviews, and special royal episodes. Outspoken is also now available as a podcast, so you can listen to the show every weekday on the go, wherever you are.